Hey, 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 welcome to your daily dose of mind stuff. My name is Ed Reiner, and I want to thank you for joining us today live on this episode, which is episode or day 67 of 100. We're at 67 days. Hard to believe that we've come this far. And I remember when we were on like day 1 and 2, and I was just fumbling all over the place, getting used to doing this. And I'm going to continue. I don't know if I'm going to continue every day, so I'm not going to say that I'm going to do that, but I will continue this in one way or another, in some form, some fashion. We will see what happens. So today we're continuing on with the Born Rich program. We're on session 17 with Bob today, which is the risk takers. So this session, Bob's going to go through risks, taking risks. We're all natural born risk takers. We were born risk takers, and he's going to go into that. He's going to go into the conditioning and how we've lost that as we've grown. And he's also going to go into this concept that we go into a lot in the teachings with Proctor Gallagher, which is the terror barrier. We go through this constantly through our lives, and most people do not know how to break through that barrier. Therefore, they remain in what we refer to as bondage or our comfort zone. Bob will go into that. It's interesting because just the other night, I heard my daughter was talking with my wife about some things that she's got going on in her life, and she is running into the terror barrier right now. So I'm going to have to sit and talk with her so I can explain this process, so she has a understanding of what's happening to her and how she can get past it. So I don't want to take up any more time on this because I'm going to let the master talk about it. We're going to go to Bob, and I will see you guys for a recap here in just a little bit. See you in a minute.
Now, you know, everything that we've covered up to this point is going to help you understand this particular lesson. How many of you have set goals in the past and you come right up, but the fear inside stops you and you back away? How many of that happened to? Everyone has experienced that. You know, Abraham Maslow one time said you will either step forward into growth or you'll step back into safety. That safety could be a prison. Is Janet Hall in our audience? Is Janet here? Janet was in a seminar recently, and she gave me a poem. And she said, would you like to have this? And I read it and I said, yeah, I sure would. And this is the first time I've shared it with anybody, but I don't know who wrote it. Janet might have wrote it. She didn't say whether she had or not. But at any rate, I got her name and I marked it on the poem. And I am indebted to her for it because it's so good. In a moment, you will be too. Here we're talking about risks. This is incredible. Says to laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to others is to risk getting involved. To show your feelings is to risk exposing yourself. To place your ideas, your dreams before the crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk pain. To try is to risk failure. But risk must be taken. It absolutely must be taken, because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing does nothing and has nothing. You may avoid suffering and sorrow, but you simply cannot learn, feel, change, grow, live, or love. Chained by your certitudes, you will be a slave. Only the person who risks is free. That'll take on even more meaning as I get into this lesson. I have here a letter, a newsletter that come from a very dear friend of mine. He's a minister in Atlanta, Jay Dishman. And I used to go and listen to Jay every weekend because I liked his ideas. I liked his way of communicating his ideas. He put them in terms that you could take them and you could use them. He said, recently I visited Alcatraz prison. Once it housed the most hardened of criminal. Today it's open for tours under the direction of the United States Parks Department. Many men have tried to escape Alcatraz, but no one is known to have succeeded. As I listened to the tour guide explain the impossibility of escape, I thought of other prisons equally as confining as Alcatraz, but where the doors are never locked, no guards walk the walls, escape is encouraged and in fact possible. And he said that prison is habit. You want to really be consciously aware of what you're doing. Is it a habitual thing you're doing every day? Is that what's controlling your life, your destiny? Or are you choosing and going in the direction of your dreams? He said our habit of thinking about ourselves and our environment is either a jail or a paradise. We just have to look around us to see people who are rich emotionally and materially because they think and feel rich. We also see people who are laden with emotional and material debt because they think lack. Some are inspired with vision. Others, unfortunately, are encumbered by doubt. Some are moved by ambition. Others are paralyzed by fear. Some feel free to change. Others feel safer in monotony. Some reach for the mountaintops. Others huddle in the pits. Some seek opportunity. Others just wait for it to knock. The sad fact is that more people are confined by their thoughts than are freed by them. Negative thinking shuts us in a prison. But there is a way out. Jay goes on to say, the Apostle Paul said, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Paul knew a lot about prisons, both physical and mental. He emphasized the mental prison by knowing we get exactly what we set ourselves up to experience. And that's exactly what John was talking about a moment ago. Now, before I get into the real important part of this letter, or of this particular lesson, I want to go back and touch on something that we covered a moment ago, but I didn't go into it too deeply. Now, let's stop and think. Here's your mind. Most of us are conditioned, and remember what conditioning is, nothing but a mass of habits. We're conditioned to take all of our information from our sensory factors. We have been programmed on a physical level from the time we're children. Look at me, listen to this. Don't you see that? And that's how we're trained and conditioned to learn. So it's natural that we should let our material, our physical, or our results control our thinking. Now, we know there are two polarities. I pointed out on this side is ignorance, and its polar opposite is knowledge. Now, an ignorant person does not understand that they can operate with their intellectual factors, they can choose the picture and get emotionally involved, and they can see the results come about in their life. They don't understand that they're letting their results control their thinking. So they set a goal, but then they look for the signals that it's going to happen. Where they start to look at the empty bank account, the wealth, it's no good. It's not there. We don't know if we're going to have enough money to keep going. And what we do at that point, we forget our goal and we start to worry. And then we doubt ourselves, and it's a negative experience. It's a psychic disease. That worry instantly and automatically turns into an emotional state called fear. Now, keep in mind, you're working with the central nervous system. It is the most incredible electrical system in the universe. This can happen in less than a millisecond, and there's 1,000 of them in a second. That energy that we call fear, that negative energy, must be expressed through the only medium it can be expressed through, and that's this thing that you live in, your physical body. And it expresses itself in a negative vibration that's more commonly known as anxiety. I had someone talk to me here just about an hour ago about anxiety. That's the cause of anxiety. Worry isn't the cause. Fear is not the cause. Ignorance is the cause. Not knowing. Most of us are afraid to admit our ignorance. We're all ignorant. I admit my ignorance freely when it come to doing some plumbing yesterday morning at about 4:45 or something like that. I admit my ignorance when it comes to tuning up a car. I'm absolutely useless. In fact, I'm ignorant in most areas. I just know how to do what I'm doing. I don't even want to learn how to do anything else. You do this well enough, you can hire somebody to do everything else. You know. Develop your strengths, manage your weaknesses. How do we eliminate ignorance? It's very basic and very simple. We study. We study and we develop understanding. And the understanding tells us, quit let your outside world, don't let your outside world, don't let previous or present results control your thinking. Visualize what you want. Get emotionally involved with it. The understanding leads to faith, and the faith manifests on the physical plane as health or well-being. You can literally transform the state of health that your body's in. I've seen people that close to death's door change it. I've watched people who are in terrible state literally change your life. I keep telling people how much I've changed, and I know that some of you, if you just hear for the first time, you never knew me before, you'd say, well, he's saying that's good copy for the seminar. How do you go talk to my mother? I got to the point where she was the only one that had even any hope that I'd ever wake up. I was like the principal that had two good reasons to go to school at 40. I mean, I was 26 and I still didn't know. John was exactly the same. Just an absolute mess. Beautiful person, but he didn't know it. I was, but I didn't know it. I want to take just a moment to introduce John's parents, because they're here today. They're sitting right over here. They're very good friends of mine. Why don't you stand up for a minute, Mr. and Miss Canary? Let's give them a real good hand, all right? They are two of the nicest people you ever want to meet. And Mrs. Canary is not at all reluctant to tell me to mind my own business or keep my place. I mean, she's always given me hell for something. But you know something? She's an honest person, and so is he. And if you were to go talk to them, they would probably tell you that they just can't believe the change that's taken place in John. And it's done it through these ideas. And you know, whatever it is, you can change. And you know, the beautiful part, they probably enjoy the change more than John does. No, they really do. Because I think when changes like that take place in our loved ones, it makes us feel so good inside. You know? So not only do you benefit from the change, so does everyone else benefit from the change. Now, we're going to run through a mental process that every one of us have experienced. I'm not going to talk to you about something you do not know about. I'm going to talk to you about something you do know about. You may not know how to stop what happens, but it's happened to every one of us. It's happened to you. Now let's go back and draw on the information that we started with. In our little life, we had all kinds of ideas programmed in here. John talked about that quite a while ago. Then we began to think, what kind of thoughts would we think? We would think thoughts that were in harmonious vibration with the conditioning we already had. It's natural for a person to think X-type thoughts, X being the unknown factor. So it would apply for all of us. If our mind is programmed, our subconscious is programmed with X-type conditioning, it would make sense that we would think X-type thoughts. Why would we? Well, by thinking X-type thoughts, those thoughts, when they're mixed with the conditioning, set up a vibration that we're used to. That's called the comfort zone. It might not give you the results you want, and in fact, probably won't. But it's comfortable. Do you know you can be comfortable getting very inferior results? You can be very comfortable in a relationship you totally dislike. Why do you think people stay together that don't even like each other? It's comfortable. It's comfortable. It's also dumb. Yeah. Why do you think a person stays on the job they don't like? It's comfortable. They're used to it. There's no risk. They know how to do it. Going after the bigger job might be scary. Keep thinking. Now, let's bring this ahead. We said this was bondage. It's prison. Now, this is what we call reason. Remember what we said here? We have sensory factors. You can see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Here we've got the person with the X-type conditioning, X-type vibration that produces X-type behavior, that produces X-type results. Let's say the X-type results represent $18,000 a year income. That's about where it was, isn't it, Al? Now, remember, we also said we have the ability to choose thinking this way or this way. We can think of how we can get what we want, or we can spend time thinking of why we can't. We also said as long as an idea was just here in our conscious mind, it would have absolutely no effect on how we felt or anything we did, because it's right here in our consciousness. Now, this is also called the educated mind or the intellectual mind. This is the part that reasons, that thinks. Now, do you know you could put a Y-type idea in there, Y being much better than the old conditioning. See, this conditioning represents an $18,000 income. I'm going to use money because everyone can relate to it. Now, I'm going to ask Al, because we talked about Al here a little earlier. Al walked over at the break, and Al gave me a sheet of paper. Now, I haven't asked Al if he'd talk about this, because I want this to be spontaneous, and I also want it to verify something that I'm almost certain of. In fact, I'll be shocked if I don't get the answers that I'm expecting. I really will. Because I know so much about how the mind operates in the human personality. Al, let's let the Y represent the $500,000 income. And the X-type conditioning represents the $18,000 income. Now, Al, this conditioning caused you to do what you were doing to give you that income. All right? Did you like what you were doing, Al? Were you excited about it?
Not 100%, no.
Not 100%. I mean, you weren't really turned on with it.
No.
Marge, were you excited about what Al was doing?
No.
Al had an escort service. That wasn't really fair, but they're pretty good heads, so I think they'll go along with that. At least Al probably would, even if Marge wouldn't. Marge, how did you like living on the $18,000 income?
I didn't.
You didn't. You didn't take many interesting trips on the 18K, did you?
None.
No, none. Bet you cooked in a lot, did you?
All the time.
All the time. Now, Al, let me come back to you again. How long had you thought about changing before you actually made the change?
Quite a few years.
I was
Quite
right.
a few.
I was right. Even righter than I expected. Quite a few years. I never thought it'd be quite a few years, but at any rate, it was quite a few years. Did you think of doing what you're doing now?
It did cross my mind, but I couldn't get myself up to
Couldn't get yourself up to do it, could you?
doing it.
You got a
Exactly.
brother that had been doing well for quite a few years, doing what you're doing now, haven't you?
Mhm.
That's right.
And what it was, I believe, was fear that was holding me back from going up.
That's exactly what it was, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Now, you see, the strange part about this is the guy that I was praising for being the great manager is his brother. Nino is Al's brother. Now, I have known Nino for 8 years. Nino was in the first seminar I did when we moved from Atlanta to Toronto. And it was an odd situation. It was his birthday, and his wife made him go. And he's told me on many occasions that he's not sorry he went. Wouldn't be very nice of him to tell me anything else at this point, would it? All right. Now, I know what Nino's done. Nino is a risk taker, no question about it. You both have the same mother and father, Al? You both do.
Absolutely.
So you see, we often say a baby is a born risk taker. Here's two people from the same parents. One's out there taking the risk, making the dough, doing the big deals. The other's doing something they're not really excited about. An $18,000 a year, wife has to cook in all the time, doesn't go out, didn't like what he was doing, wasn't excited about it. He's thinking about doing what his brother's doing for years, but he doesn't do it. Is that uncommon? That is not uncommon at all. Not uncommon at all. You've probably experienced that in your family. I see it happening every day. Now, if we could keep focusing on this, the Y-type idea represents what you're doing now. And every time you thought about it, you probably thought about the compensation that it would give you. Is that correct?
Exactly.
You never dreamed it would be $500,000 a year, though.
Never did. No.
Never. Have you any idea how many years it would take you to earn $500,000 at 18K?
Several.
And your hair wouldn't be black and curly, my friend. It would be long and gray. Now, if you had any left. But you see, it's generally much better than you ever even think it will be. Now, I want you to keep thinking about Al's situation. Al is a real estate agent. And we've already found out that there's only 13 out of 20,000 that are doing a job that may be a little superior to his. So you could say Al is one of the best in the world at what he does. But he had to think about doing it for years. Now, when he was thinking about it, he probably thought about the nice cars, the nice trips. I was looking at Marge. I was just about blinded by the ring on her finger. I mean, I don't think you got that on 18K. You'd had a couple of years' wages for low in there. Now, let's come back again and focus here. Here's Al, X-type energy, X-type vibration, X-type behavior, X-type results. And he gets to the point where he's thinking, I think I'm going to do that. But before you can act on a Y-type idea, it must go through that part of your personality. You'll never act on an idea without passing it through here. It is the power that doeth the work. Remember that? John brought that out in the last lesson. And every time he went to impress that idea, the Y-type idea and the X-type energy, you know what that did? That instantly and automatically affected his entire nervous system. It set up a chaotic vibration. We'll call it a foreign vibration. It's an X-Y-type vibration, mental conflicts, and instantly and automatically doubt, fear, and anxiety just zoomed through his system. And it happened so fast, he didn't even know what was happening. When that feeling took over, he did not know how to control it, so he did what Maslow said. He stepped back into safety. Then he started to reason with it. Who needs the big cars anyway? Damn things just cost too much money. What's Marge need that big ring for? A little band of gold is all she ever really needed. Those prices in those richly restaurants are ridiculous anyway. Lights go down, the price goes up. Kids are well fed and looked after. We're well dressed. We have a warm home. Besides, Nino loses every now and then too. I don't really need it. You've got to justify staying here some way. So you do something called rationalizing. That's rationing lies to your mind. Could Al break through this terror barrier? Not only could, but he did. But he did. Here's the X-type energy. Here's the Y-type idea. And he started to get emotionally involved. Did he create doubt, fear, anxiety? Yeah, he sure did. But I'm going to tell you what's different. He started to do it with understanding. Understanding. You know what that led to? That led to freedom. Now, I want you to watch here for a moment. What did Al say? He said just after he made the change, he came to the seminar. He started to use the tapes. I met young Christina yesterday, and apparently they're inundating her brain with the tapes. And I'm going to tell you something, Christina, it's going to pay off for you. It's going to pay off for you. John was mentioning about Brian's personality. I was happy to hear him say that. Brian's my son. I was going to tell John it's in the genes, but I know that's not right. Do you know that I started to study these ideas just a few months before Brian was born? And a big change took place in my life just a few months after he was born. What did Zucker say? There's two classes, no class in first class. I made up my mind that I was going to program some ideas into their little minds that were a lot different than the ones I had programmed into mine. Now, this is saying nothing against my parents. They gave me everything they had. You cannot give a person something you do not have. If we traveled, I had them fly in the front of the plane, first class. We would take them to nice restaurants to eat because I had to learn after I was an adult how to eat in a nice restaurant. I didn't know which piece of cutlery to pick up first. I would be asked if I wanted something. When the waiter or waitress first came, I didn't even know what the word meant. I would take them to beautiful resorts. I was going into New York one time, and I took Brian and Raymond with me. John and I had limos picking us up, stretches, taking us everywhere. If you're going to travel, you might as well be comfortable. I had Joe, the guy who used to take us in New York all the time. I said, Joe, I want to keep you for the day. I'll bring the boys down. I want you to take them around. Had them drive them all around. I said, take them down to the battery, wake them up. So he took them to all these places in a stretch limo. You see? Moved to England, moved to the United States, always traveling. They always were in nice cars. I don't think they know what a used car means. See? Nice homes, nice clothes. That's all I give them. The homes they bought. They earned the money, and they bought them. Somebody say, oh, wow, yeah, it's Proctor's kid. He can afford to buy a couple of houses. You're right, he can. And not because he's my kid, because he got the ideas. He and Leslie study it all the time. Colleen does what she wants. Raymond does what she wants. I never went to college. Nobody in our family ever went to university. So there was never much talk about going to university. Linda helped me with that idea. We didn't talk to them whether they were going to go. We talked to them where they were going to go. See, we had to make a choice. Which one do you want to go to? Not do you want to go or not. And if that's all you talk to them about, they make a choice. Colleen chose Illinois State. Raymond chose Wilfrid Laurier. Now he tells me he wants to be a lawyer. He's in his last year in Wilfrid Laurier. So I guess we're locked in for another 4 years. But I treat education, as being almost sacred. As long as he'll go, I'll pay. You see? Al didn't have the benefit of that kind of teaching, and neither did I. Do you know what he did? He did the same thing I did. He came to the seminar and he got involved with those tapes, and he listened to them over and over and over again. And if you're watching this videotape, don't think just because you hear what I'm saying and you can repeat a bit of it that you know it. You want to watch it over and over and over again. You get one of the most magnificent tools in your hand that you'll ever get your hands on. Now, I want this to represent X-type conditioning in your life. Let it represent X-type conditioning. Let this represent the Y-type idea. Now watch. You're watching with your eyes. You don't see any change, do you, Reen? Al, do you see any change?
No, I don't.
You don't see any change. But your understanding tells you that it's not as dark as it was before I put the clear water in, doesn't it? You see, as you impress the bigger idea, the old conditioning becomes weaker. And as we keep doing it, it becomes weaker. And it becomes weaker. And it becomes weaker. But you see, our eyes deceive us. We can't see any difference. But every time we watch the video, every time we turn on the set, every time we review the paragraph with the tape, every time we watch this idea being explained, the old conditioning becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. And if we will keep impressing it, even although it appears that everything outside is remaining the same, our inner eye of understanding tells us it's not the same, that it is becoming weaker. Now, I want you to think. Even although you experience some doubt and fear and anxiety, you understand what's causing that. It's the change that's taking place in the mind. That's what Paul talked about, the renewal of the mind. Now, Thoreau one time said something that is so rich with truth. He said, if you will endeavor to live the life you have imagined. That's the new idea, the why idea. He said, any person who advances confidently, and you've got to do it with confidence, and that comes with understanding. Any person who will advance confidently in the direction of their dream and endeavor to live the life they imagined, they will meet with success unexpected in common hours. Now watch this, because one day you're going to wake up and everything will have changed. Just like that. And your life will never be the same again. That's the way it works. That's called awakening. And that's what life looks like now, isn't it, Al?
Absolutely.
How did John start out talking about Lee? He said, I couldn't give you what I've got because you got too much of what you got. But if you work with it just a little bit at a time, I guarantee you'll bust through that terror barrier that we have written there on page 49, and you will experience the freedom that, I might add, you were born into. Have you ever wondered why you're attracted to the baby? It doesn't matter the race, the religion, the creed, the culture. None of those things matter. If a mother or father standing in front of you in the shopping line, you've got the strongest urge to reach out and touch that baby. Sometimes you'll want to hold it and just kiss it. You will. Sometimes you cannot contain yourself, even though you don't know the people. You'll look hesitantly at the parent just so you can touch the little baby's hand and let it hold your little finger. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's such a strong magnetic pull? Think about it. It was Kipling said that, I love those little people. And it is no small thing when they who are so fresh from God love me. You see, we are created in a magnificent vibration, in an absolutely magnificent vibration. Born risk takers, free. That conditioning takes place after birth. You can change it. It takes guts. It takes goals. Now, do you know something? You're sitting there watching this and you're thinking, by God, I'm going to change something. I had a man telling me this here today at one of the breaks. He said, I'm getting so excited, I can hardly contain myself. He said, I just feel so happy. I said, you want to know something? You keep watching this and you keep watching this and you'll get happier and happier. And you're going to get to the point where you think, oh, I couldn't get any happier. And then you'll get happier. That's exactly the way it works. Abundance is our birthright. Now, if you're going to change, you know there's only one time to do it. Right now. Right now. Right now. You see, Al Spizzeri made a decision. Regardless of the fear, regardless of the doubt, regardless of the flack from his buddies at work, he made a decision. And he made the decision on page 50 at the top of the page that Gerda was talking about. He said, are you in earnest? Then seize this very minute what you can do or even dream you can do and begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Only engage and the mind will grow heated. Begin and the work will be completed. Emerson said, do the thing and you'll get the energy to do the thing. You can go busting through this, and I'm going to tell you with this understanding that you've got, then that you're heightening, that you're developing higher and higher and higher again, you can turn it into an awareness and enthusiasm. It does not have to be a terror barrier. It can just excite the daylights out of you. In our company, we have a plan. We have a plan. And it's a big one. This seminar that you're sitting in is going to be marketed throughout the United States, throughout New Zealand, throughout Australia, throughout England. Do you know that in the next, I'll say 14 months, taking into consideration the post-production of this particular seminar, we will have 6,700 people selling, 750 people. That's 6,750 people selling this throughout North America alone. We have added approximately 70 people in Canada since March. Good people, really good people. That's our idea. Does it scare us? Yeah, sometimes. Do we doubt? Yeah, sometimes. Do we experience some anxiety? Yep, sometimes. Some more than others. But that wouldn't stop us because we understand. If we advance confidently in the direction of our dreams and endeavor to live the life we've imagined, we're going to meet success unexpected in common hours. Now, you got to make a commitment. We made a commitment. It's not an accident we attracted all these people. It's not an accident we're doing what we're doing. It's not an accident this program is going to be in millions of hands very, very shortly. This particular program on video is going to be one of the most professional productions that is on the market today. The seminar already is. There's nothing that will equal this seminar, not in the market today. We've had doctors, we've had lawyers, psychiatrists, some of the most senior executives in some of the largest companies in the world tell us there's nothing will equal this. And I know why. I know why. Because we're giving an understanding to a person of who they really are. We're not just giving them some technique that's intellectual or physical or academic. Power's within you. You got to write out your commitment. A commitment is a directive to yourself. It's a directive to yourself. I remember one time reading somewhere that the mark of a superior performer is a person that can give themselves a command and then follow it. That's what's on that page. Now, on page 51, we say, remember, it makes no difference whether your goal is starting a new business, buying a new automobile, a position at work, setting a sales record, or earning an honors mark in school. Whatever it may be, you must step out boldly and pursue it. Look at the win that Al Spazzeri is enjoying today, and he is just starting. It's like Haps Adandanak in that letter. This show is only one small step in the direction of greater things you can do, many of which are beyond your wildest dreams. And I would imagine that Al sometimes has to shake his head, and I would imagine Marge does too. Would you agree with that?
100%.
100%. And you know something, Al? The beautiful part is you are always capable of doing it. You are capable of doing what you're doing now when you're earning $18,000 a year, but you weren't aware of it. Give him another hand. I mean, he's made a big step. What did we say right at the start of the lesson? Motivation and education leads to wise decisions and intelligent action, and enables us to enjoy the prosperity which is our birthright. Now we say, keep reminding yourself that you have tremendous reservoirs of potential within you. We're on page 51, and therefore you are quite capable of doing anything you set your mind to. You really can. I don't care what the cynics tell you. Quit listening to some of your peers. Want to shoot a better golf game? Quit golfing with your friends. Now, all you must do is figure out how you can do it, not whether you can or not. Just think of how you can. Forget about whether you can or not. You know you can. You just have to find out how. Begin to visualize yourself as a risk taker, and then starting telling yourself that you are one. Become fully aware of the good vibrations you get simply by virtue of practicing these simple exercises. Now, here we are at the page of top of page 52. I've been quoting William James or James Allen. Through every lesson, I think I've given you this quote. Your circumstances may not be congenial, but they will not long remain so if you perceive an ideal and strive to reach it. I still have not figured out how Leslie and Brian even bought that first house. I haven't figured it out. Because if they had any money, they had it well buried. That was before they started earning anything. Then they started to work with Nino, and the income skyrocketed. So I don't even have to think of how they bought the second one. I'm not quite sure how many they're going to buy. But I know one thing. If you haven't got much and you want to get a lot in real estate, you sit down and talk to them. They'll tell you that you're going to make some major exciting moves. You've been thinking about them. You're committing yourself to it. When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? You've got to create a sense of urgency. I'm going to do it right now.
Okay, so that's the process we go through, that razor's edge, the terror barrier. And he gave some great examples in there. So after watching this, sit down and just reflect on times in your life when you've hit that terror barrier. And the more we watch these lessons, the more we watch things like what we're doing here with the Daily Dose of Mind stuff, it's through the repetition, like Bob was saying, watch it over and over and over, and you'll get happier and happier. I have found over the years of studying this stuff that the times in my life when something has happened, a big circumstance or whatever it may be has happened, and I've fallen away from my daily study of watching this, even if it's a week or so, I can see myself starting to go in the opposite direction. So that's why it's so important that we study every single day. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to watch a video every day, but some sort of study, reading from, just great books every day. I've got all these books here. So at any time, I can just pull it. And even if it's for 15 minutes or reading a paragraph and reflecting on that, we're putting good ideas in our mind. We're thinking of the positive. We want to stay away from negative thoughts. And in this day and age is even harder, I think, now than any other, with the amount of negativity and the speed at which we receive ideas through the media and social media and the mainstream media. And we're constantly being bombarded. We have to guard our thoughts. We have to keep them positive. And the way we do that is through that constant repetition of studying and studying. So Bob finished by saying, you want to make some big moves. And what he's referring to is on the back of the workbook here is a page that has on here just lists. It's got a bunch of blank spots with a date. And he says that list below any major exciting moves that you have been committed to make and when you're going to make them. So really think about something that you've been procrastinating on, that that if you move on that idea, you're probably going to run into that terror barrier. You're going to experience the fear, the worry, the doubt, the fear, the anxiety. But now you know what the process is. And so you have an understanding. And the more we study, the greater understanding we get, because as Bob said, that's the only way we gain understanding is through study. We can then understand what's happening and we can go through that terror barrier to the next phase, which is freedom. It doesn't make that XY, that foreign vibration, chaotic vibration go away, but we go through the fear with understanding and faith. Faith based on understanding is the key to freedom. So list down any moves you've been procrastinating on and put a date and make a commitment and a decision that you're going to make those moves and then step out and do it. I can list this whole series that we've been doing here, this 100 days of the Daily Dose of Mind stuff. This is an idea that I've had to do for a couple of years. Just like he was talking with Al. It had been a couple of years that he was thinking about stepping out. There's a lot of moves that have been that way. But knowing this process and by studying more, I made the decision to do it. And it wasn't a decision that I made and then did a lot of planning. It was a decision, and I gave myself about a week, and I put the date down in my calendar. Then I came on and I did a video and announced that I was going to do it. So I kind of put my feet to the coals, so to speak. So then I was committed and I had to do it because I had already made that accountability. Did I experience that? Yep, I sure did. But through the repetition of doing this, it gets comfortable and more comfortable as I go along. So that's where I'm going to stop today with the Daily Dose of Mind Stuff. I want to thank you for joining me today. We will be back tomorrow with session 18, which is the Razor's Edge. So join me tomorrow, and you have a great rest of the day. If you found value in this, share it, like it, subscribe, bring somebody with you to watch, a colleague, a friend, a family member. Get them involved in these ideas because it'll change lives. And that's my whole purpose, is to help people change their lives. So once again, Ed Reiner with the Daily Dose of Mind Stuff. I will see you tomorrow. Peace. God bless.